So we are at the sawmill of Taylor&Boody. Mr. Boody, what do you see in those big chunks of white oak?
What do I see?
A new organ?
A new organ, yes. This was a huge, these two pieces were together, and this was a crotch right in the middle, and we have a sawmill a saw that we can mount on the track over here. It's a chainsaw, and we can run the chainsaw right through the middle of the piece. So we have a double chainsaw that we mount here onto this frame, and then we can roll this thing along. We can adjust up and down. We take this big log and we'll level it so that the heart is exactly centered, and then split it down the middle. And once we get through that, we can put it on the band mill and precision cut it. Like this cut and splitting this crotch through and through, you see it's produced really wild interference grain. Look at this fanning grain up here, and we'll take a piece like this and we'll take some thin slices and then glue it on a music rack, and you can see that wild grain. I position the log on the sawmill at 45 degrees, and then we'll cut down to the heart. And right now this last cut was right at the heart. See where the heart is? Now the next thing we'll do, we'll pull it up so that this face is standing straight up and down, and then we'll cut down to the heart again and get this next bunch here. And the widest boards have the most perfect grain alignment, which is a really nice thing about sawing this way. But you can see the fleck, the medullary rays, very pronounced when you, especially if you do a good job aligning the log heart to heart on the sawmill. Sometimes you see this it's up a little bit here. See, I moved it up a little bit to get the heart end to end perfectly aligned. In a commercial sawmill, they never think about that. They only think about some kind of production, but they don't think about doing this alignment. We saw 2 days a week. We can do, that's a week's worth of sawing that's on the live deck right now.
Over there?
Yeah. That's a week. That'll take us a week to cut and stack.
How many times do you use this sawmill?
2 days a week. Two 70-year-old guys.
Wow.
And then we have a conveyor. We can throw everything in the conveyor, and it goes down here, and we've got an automatic cut-off saw that cuts it off. It's got a photocell that determines the length and makes beautiful stove wood out of all these offcuts. And it goes up the conveyor and into the bin, and we can dump the bin in the pile. And we've got racks here for stacking the lumber and putting the sticks in so we get good alignment. And here's our work since the 1st of January. We've cut this much.
Oh my gosh.
That's about 10,000 board feet.
And you have spacing in between so the air can circulate. Yeah. And how long do they need to rest like that?
If they could stay there a year, it would be good.
And then do you have to dry them extra in an oven or something like that?
I have a chamber that's built into here, and I can load the wood on the track and run it into the chamber, and I can warm it up, and I also can dehumidify it. I can take water out.
historic organs, I suppose, I first met in Europe. But my path toward them began with, well, of course, playing older organs in this country that weren't particularly good, and learned to play on an SC organ. And then in 1960, when I entered university, I heard that there was a new organ coming to Richmond, which was to be built by a German organ builder. And that was Rudolf von Beckerath. And I became very interested in that project at the University Chapel, and was there at the time of the installation and pretty excited about that. And suddenly I had heard an organ that made a lot more music. And from that point on, I pursued the possibility of working with him when I finished university. I studied sociology, and as soon as I was out of there, I was an organ builder. So went off to Germany for 3.5 years, and it was there that I began to discover the Schnitger organs around Hamburg. And the person with whom I visited most of these organs was John Brumbaugh, who also was working at the shop for a brief time after I'd been there for several years.
Super octave 2.
Black on there.
Yeah.
Spiegel, the Germans call it. Mirror.
That organ for Wheaton College?
That is.
Wow, it is much bigger than I had expected.
It's quite large, and it's the grate will go through the roof.
Oh, literally.
Literally. Yeah. So we won't get to see that here.
Can I peek behind?
Yeah, absolutely.
The toes for the reeds are already in. Are they glued to the winchest?
These guys are screwed down, so
Screwed
they
down,
can they can come off. I use that if we have chest resonances, we tend to tone channel. I'll drill out a hole in the back of the boot and put a leather window on there, which helps absorb that.
Oh, and beautiful wedge bellows. That's great.
These guys are foot pumpable, and it's in the church, actually placed on the other side of that pedal tower. but can't quite spread out that far in the shop.
So it's a 3 manual instrument?
3 manuals,
With
yeah.
a Brustwerk or a Swellwerk?
It's a Brust. Hauptwerk, Rückpositiv, and Brustwerk.
And this is the pipe room, so you make all the pipes yourself?
Yeah, all the pipes get made in here by DJ and Robbie. And at these benches, we're doing a little action work in here at the moment. But yeah, I get to make all the pipes in here, from casting to hammering to see hammered sheets of metal stored underneath the tables here.
Oh,
So it's back it down in front of my trailer.
Yeah, you
Those
can
are
see
the-
some of the samples of the embossed pipes, which are very pretty, even between lead or tin. Pretty good.
that must be a lot of work.
It is, yeah. So you put the mandrels that you normally round the pipes up on. You take one that's too small for the size of pipe, and you put carpet foam over top of the mandrel, and then take and score the metal on the back side of it, and wrap it around the mandrel, and then use a burnisher, a little curved piece of metal, to press in all the flats and curls and curves and places on the metal.
So it's Wheaton College.
So we have a pneumatic trip hammer.
This one?
Yeah, and so it's quite loud, and some acoustical deadening on the ceiling and walls, and try to keep the noise to a minimum. But it's earplugs and ear muffs over top, kind of a job.
So this is the casting room.
Yep.
And what do you cast the metal on?
So we have a cloth that you can see. There's a protector on top of this right now, but there's a Nomex cloth there sitting on top of, I don't remember if it's soapstone or granite underneath, but heavy stone and you can see the pictures. Fill the casting box full with molten lead and drag it down the edge of the cloth. The cloth was orange in those days. And you're left with a sheet of molten metal on there, and then it has this very magical moment when it goes from liquid to solid. That's amazing to watch it.
How do you control the thickness? Like some pipes must be thicker than others,
It's
right?
through the speed at which, from the gap at the back of the casting box, and the speed at which you move the casting box down the table. So you move faster and get a thinner sheet, and so you can change your speed going down the table to change the taper of the metal, so that you end up with thinner at the top of the pipe and thicker down at the bottom where it needs a support.
And that's useful for 16-foot long pipes, right?
Everything, really. It's not as important when you get shorter than 2 foot, but even the 4 foot stuff is nice to have good taper to it. Otherwise, especially with lead alloys and common metal alloys, that they'll want to just to keep it stronger at the mouth so that they don't collapse.
that was led by Rohrflöte, and that was 1977. And it was a great group of people, and really it was my first chance to go around Ostfriesland and hear the organs that were very similar to this instrument. And then after we finished that tour, we were asked to go to Groningen in Nederlands. The organ in the Akerk was in danger, and the church was actually in danger of collapse because of change of ground level and ground pressure. And they wanted to take out the historic pipework from the organ in the Akerk. And so we had the privilege of removing and handling all the historic pipes from that instrument. And some of the pipes in that organ predate Schnittger by a long time. And I mean, there's pipework from Andreas de Maar in there. And as we took the pipes out, we blew them. And that just tells you so much about how the voicing is, and feeling the weight of the pipes and looking at the construction. It was an ideal opportunity. And for that work, we worked with Cor Etzkes, who is the great Dutch historian of the Schnittger organs, and he told us a lot while we were doing it, and he was happy because we worked for free.
We worked together for 7 years with John Brumbaugh, starting his business in Ohio. Then he moved to the West Coast, and we came to Virginia. So we had already worked basically in this style. This is the first instrument, however, for which we built our own pipes. And we cast all of this lead, and there are no 17% pipes in this organ.
No, this organ is entirely lead and all the same alloy.
It gives this particular sound, this very powerful, intense, there's a vocal quality to it that is designed for congregational singing, and we focused on this intensity, sort of sweetness of the sound above all.
And is that mostly because of the lead material, or is that a combination of voicing and...
It's a combination of voicing styles which we had learned. Rudolf von Becherot was interested, for example, in pursuing this sort of sound in a flutier quality in his pipes than he had been earlier, and I happened to be working with him in voicing when he was going through that phase, and then John Brumbaugh and I took that up in Ohio when we were voicing together, and this is the result once we came and started working.
And the voicing, do you usually just do it in the shop, or
Usually we had no voicing machine, so the voicing was done here, and we started with the principal pipes, and those were the days when we refined this business of cutting up the pipe until it was almost spoiled. And if you went any further, a tenth of a millimeter further, the pipe wouldn't work. So you were pushing it to the limit, you see, and open toe voicing and so forth. And I'm standing here doing this and really just trying to figure out what this organ might be. And the head of the organ committee was standing here, and of course he expected to walk in and have something wonderful. And here we just worked and worked and worked on this pipe, and then on that pipe, and the next one, and so forth. And some of it went easily, but finally he got tired of waiting, and he said, "This is just trial and error."
And you can only do that kind of voicing on a mechanical stop action, because you play the pipe and then you cut the wind back by pushing the stop knob in, and you can hear what the pipe is doing.
You're testing the speech and cutting the wind down, and if it begins to scrape, then you've gone as far as you can dare go.
And that's the voicing you did in this organ, and
Yes, and that's the way
Holy Cross as well.
Yeah, basically that's what I did all the years when I was voicing. However, we gradually developed a style out of this, and we built a tuning machine at home, and so we could do most of the pre-voicing at home.
With the octave 4. Add the Gemshorn tool. Without the octave. There's a quint, which works really well with the Rohrflöte. It's accompanied with the Gedacht and Rohrflöte 4 and a pedal. With the third. The Gemshorn. Add the octave. And for example, in a church like St. Thomas, New York,
there was almost no voicing on site, and certainly no cutting the pipes to tune them to the room the way we did here, because the room was so forgiving. And if the pipes spit and talk to you a little bit, that's all absorbed by a room like that. See? So you don't have to worry with it. Then it's even more natural.
It's never even. You have to accept the fact that some pipes will make more music than others, and that's what makes the sound really interesting. And I think Bach knew that when he wrote the music, because when you're winging up and down the scale, you hear that kind of edgy difference in the sound, which makes it so fascinating.
It's interesting, this is a room which changes when people are in it, because suddenly they're absorbing a lot of sound. And when they stand up to sing, the organ is by no means too powerful. When people are standing and singing, they absorb a huge amount of this volume. So it's not too loud. It's pretty loud in an empty space, but also pretty exciting.
Let's move on to the Gedacht of the Brustwerk. Mit der Rohrflöte 4. At the octave 2. Quint. With the 1/4.